Treaty of Hartford Conference. And on top of all those great, wonderful things about the Pequot War, we got some good news from Germany. And good news from Germany. What was that news? Who the fuck knows? Who is this? The Protestants, the Germans, the Catholics? What good news from Germany? I am baffled by that part. What good news? Day of Thanksgiving, thanking God that they had eliminated over 700 men, women, and children had signed into law that this day forth shall be a day of celebration and thanksgiving for subduing the Pequots. Thanks to God for his great mercies for subduing the Pequot. Thanks for bringing the soldiers in safety, the success of the conference, and good news from Germany. And there's Thanksgiving. That's the Thanksgiving, August 12th, 1637. One of many Thanksgivings, but that's the Thanksgiving of the massacre of the Pequot, the extermination, the genocide, and the incineration of the Pequot Nation. So many people trace the origins of the modern Thanksgiving Day to that harvest celebration that the Pilgrims held in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1621. But their first true Thanksgiving was 1623, their official Thanksgiving. Bromo, cacao seeds, cacao tree, the cacao, cocoa, that's how, essentially, misspelling, mispronunciation, cocoa, just so much easier to say cocoa than cacao. And you know what cocoa is in Haiti? It is the vajayjay. That's cocoa. So Theobroma cocoa seeds. It's also called the cocoa tree. It's a small, about 4 to 5 millimeter, 13 to 26 foot tall tree, which is 26 feet. That's 13 foot. That's pretty tall. It's an evergreen tree in the family Malvaceae, native to the deep tropical regions of Central and South America. Its seeds, the cocoa beans, are used to make cocoa mass, cocoa powder, confectionery, ganache, and chocolate. We also found a pineapple, tomato, potato, vanilla, chocolate, pineapple, tomato, potato, sweet potato, corn, chili peppers, hot peppers, green bell peppers, pecans. Pecans. Nobody agrees how it's said, but pecan or pecan? Pecan or pecan? I think pecan sounds right. It sounds more proper, but it is stuck up, right? Pecans. It's pecan. Nah, it's a pecan. That there is a pecan. Nah, it's a pecan. It doesn't seem as, I don't know, Nevada. I'm Nevada, pecan. I guess it's one, I don't know. I like pecan better. So, pecans and cocoa beans were like money. It's weird they were using wampum when they actually, pecans and cocoa beans had valued themselves and they were used as currency as well. So, the pecans, cocoa beans, they were money. The Aztec Empire received a yearly tribute of 980 loads, Ixuquipil and Nahalti, of cocoa in addition to other goods. It's a major currency in pre-Columbian Mesoamerican civilizations. So the Aztec civilization, but Cahokia would be the one that would, for North America. Each load represented exactly 8,000 beans. The buying power of quality beans was such that 80 to 100 beans could buy a new cloth mantle. The use of cocoa beans as currency is also known to have spawned counterfeiters during the Aztec Empire. Cocoa was also believed to be ground by the Aztecs and mixed with tobacco for smoking purposes. The pecan, Carya illinoisensis, is a species of hickory native to Mexico and south-central, southeastern regions of the United States. Thomas Jefferson and George Washington planted pecan trees. And in Washington also raised hemp, or their slaves did, because they're lazy fucking bastards. They wouldn't do any of that shit because it's labor intensive. So they'd probably make them raise a bunch of vanilla too. It's labor intensive, pecan, hemp, vanilla. They ain't going to do that shit themselves. So pecan is from an Algonquin word, variously referring to pecans, walnuts, and hickory nuts, or more broadly to any nut requiring a stone to crack. So a pecan, you need a stone to crack this nut. That's a pecan. 1876 is when an African-American slave gardener from Louisiana named Antone successfully propagated pecans by grafting a superior wild pecan to seedling pecan stocks. Antone's clone was named the Centennial because it won the best pecan exhibited award at the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition in 1876 as 1876 planting, which eventually 126 centennial trees was the first official planting of the improved pecans. The successful use of grafting techniques led to grafted orchards of superior genotypes and proved to be a milestone for the pecan industry. The adoption of these techniques was slow and had little commercial impact until the 1880s, when Louisiana and Texas nurserymen learned of pecan grafting and began propagation on a commercial level. Thus was the start of a booming pecan growing and shelling industry. There is wild rice, passion fruit, peanuts, pumpkins, avocados, papaya, beans, squash, zucchini, berries, nuts, acorns, chia, sunflowers, maple. What's this passion fruit about? Cranberries, not cranberry sauce yet. And there was sweet potatoes, just not in North America yet. Tobacco built Jamestown. It was founded 1400 BC in Mexico, so tobacco is from the Portuguese word. The precise origin of the word tobacco is disputed, but it's generally thought to have derived at least in part from Taino, the Arawakian language of the Caribbean. So from Taino, which is the Native Americans Columbus exterminated first, or tried to exterminate. Taino. It was in Haiti, Taino, and I think Barbados. The first islands that Columbus landed on, Taino, is the ones who named tobacco. And Haiti, the island, Haiti. In Taino, it is said to mean either a roll of tobacco leaves, tobacco, I guess, or Tobago. Trinidad, Tobago. Holy shit, that whole island is named Tobago. And this is according to Bartolome de las Casas, 1552. Or Tobago, the kind of Y-shaped pipe used for sniffing tobacco smoke, according to Oviedo, with the leaves themselves being referred to as cohiba. 1637, the Pequot War culminated in the burning of Fort Mystic by the English and their allies, killing hundreds of Pequot men, women, and children, almost wiping out the Pequot tribe. 1/3 of the Pequot tribe was wiped out after the Mystic River Massacre. The safe return of the soldiers from the burning the fort was one of the events for which the Massachusetts Bay Colony declared themselves a Thanksgiving Day. It was proclaimed by the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, John Winthrop, in 1637. John Winthrop's proclamation is one of a day of public thanksgiving to God for his great mercies in subduing the Pequots. So they were thankful, right, about it. October 12th, 1634, is that we at least see that they were right? So this is John Winthrop admitting he was happy. This journal entry or some entry, the records of the governor and company of Massachusetts Bay in New England by Nathaniel Shirtliff. So, this book says August 12th, 1637. So it happened May 26th. May, June, July, August, so 2.5 months later. So they're going to be happy with subduing the Pequot, wiping out all the Pequot. So the first massacre happens, and then there's going to be a second, and then a third massacre, and then there's no more Pequot to speak of. There's only 80 of them, and then they distribute them, and actually there's a few of them that they give some land to. The Mohegan weren't treating them good, and so eventually the Pequot gets a reservation, which they have a casino on right now. So there's about 2,000 Pequot who still live today. It was August 12th, 1637 is a day they kept. 12th of the 8th month was ordered to be kept a day of public thanksgiving to God for his great mercies in subduing the Pequot, bringing the soldiers in safety, the success of the conference, and good news from Germany. So there is 3 reasons for having this Thanksgiving Day. 1, massacring, genociding, incinerating, wiping the fucking Pequot out. We murdered every single one of those motherfuckers, and they're dead now. And the soldiers who killed them all, the babies, while they were sleeping, they were able to come back safely. And then there was a successful conference. Is that the Treaty of Hartford Conference? And on top of all those great, wonderful things about the Pequot War, we got some good news from Germany. And good news from Germany. What was that news? Who the fuck knows? Who is this? The Protestants, the Germans, the Catholics, what good news from Germany? I am baffled by that part. What good news? Journal entry of John Winthrop for that day, August 12th, 1637 is this: a day of thanksgiving kept in all the churches for our victories against the Pequods and for the success of the assembly. But by reason of this latter, some of the Boston would not be present at the public exercises. The captains and soldiers who had been in the late service were feasted, and after the sermon the magistrates and elders accompanied them to the door of the house where they dined. So he's saying that some of them wouldn't be present at the public exercises, the success of the assembly. So this treaty, the Hartford Treaty Conference, they had, figured out a lot of shit, and they were like, well, the rest of y'all just got to catch up, hopefully. So that was an official day of Thanksgiving proclaimed by Massachusetts Governor John Winthrop. Happy Thanksgiving. Oh my God, Sassacus. He's in there. He's in the fort. Sassacus is there. Sassacus, the god. The one god. Nobody can kill Sassacus, the god. And so they stayed back. The first lie. It was never Thanksgiving. It was never a day of Thanksgiving. Even William Bradford, I think, called it the fall harvest, the fall celebration. So he didn't even, the main fucking Englishman that was there wasn't even calling it a Thanksgiving. There was a Thanksgiving in 1623, which was an official Thanksgiving. So the 1621 meal, there was no fucking turkey, and it wasn't a Thanksgiving. There was, so these are huge things, right? It's not actually a Thanksgiving. What is a Thanksgiving? We don't even know what Thanksgivings are. But it wasn't a Thanksgiving in 1621. There was no turkey there. There was no cranberry sauce, no green bean casserole, no Parker House rolls. The only 4 things that was listed in the primary source was water, fowl, 5 deer, grain, and Indian corn. Those are the 4 things, and that's it. Grain, so that could be barley and wheat. Indian corn, so cornmeal, hominy. Deer, venison, waterfowl, ducks, and geese. No turkey. Absolutely zero evidence that there is any turkey at that festival. Zero evidence. There's 2 pieces of primary source documents that is used when it comes to this Thanksgiving harvest feast. One of them is Edward Winslow, and his is the only first-person direct account of the festival. William Bradford talked about it, but he also talked about the general provisions. So when they pull out turkey, turkey comes from William Bradford's the fall climate, just how the game was. So he mentioned that there was a lot of turkeys in general, but not for that specific fall celebration. Just in general, the fall of 1621 was like this, so and so. So they had a pea crop. It wasn't worth a shit, right? They had barley. The 2 primary sources, the Edward Winslow source is the only one that we can use, his general provisions. Edward Bradford's, it's not as important. So I hate to break it to you, but the story of Thanksgiving being this bountiful cornucopia, there wasn't even turkey. You didn't even have any goddamn turkey there. A little bit of barley, a little bit of cornmeal. You don't even know what to do with homily today. You know what homily is? Here, let me tell you. Okay, so here's some things that cornmeal can make. So as batter for fried foods such as corn dogs, that's where cornmeal is used. It can be made into bread, as in corn fritters, corn bread, hush puppies, Johnny cakes, or spoon bread, as breading for fried or baked food like fried fish as a breakfast cereal ingredient. This is cornmeal, okay? Cheese curl type snacks such as Cheetos and Cheesies, and corn chips such as Fritos, not tortilla chips or corn tortillas, which are made from nixtamalized maize flour. It can be used as a release agent to prevent breads and pizza from sticking to their pans when baking. It can be used as grits, as a porridge, such as cornmeal mush, which is often then sliced and grilled, known as samp. It is used in colonial times as a kind of porridge. And you listen to 1 minute of food talk because you're fat, America. You're fat. This is a person that needs to go out and get some exercise. So that's some cornmeal, okay? So there might have been cornmeal, so you could have had all that, but there wasn't no green bean casserole, no turkeys, no watermelons, no cantaloupes, no apples, no mangoes, no bananas, no coffee, no Fritos, no Doritos, no tea, no Captain Crunch, no Oscar Mayer, no Walmarts, no Twinkies, no Pringles, no potato chips, no Raisin Bran Crunch, no Frosted Flakes, no sugar, no clean water, no plumbing, no sewage, no internet, no Pokemon, no Fate Zero, no Fate Stay Night. Tartar sauce, no horsey sauce, no Thousand Island dressing, no ranch dressing, no Szechuan sauce, no grated Parmesan cheese, no jalapeno cheese dipping sauce, no tortilla chips, no Big Mac, no tater salad, no ginger root. There might have been ginger root. I don't know about it. No mint leaves. There could have been mint leaves too. But you get the point. They didn't even have a table knife in 1637, or that was the year a table knife was invented. So you know they didn't have it by then. It was just invented that year. So they didn't have a table knife back then. 1637, the year of the tulip mania. 1621 was a different time back then. Jamestown got into cannibalizing each other. Bradford, Pilgrims, and Puritans were setting their dead up in the forest, propping them up, setting them up against the trees to give the appearance of armed guards. So literal scarecrows, using their dead to turn them into literal scarecrows. 1600, before America, before the Enlightenment. That 1621 Wampanoag Pokanoket dinner wasn't a Thanksgiving feast. We those 3 days to be days of Thanksgiving, and the feast was never repeated. So it wasn't an annual ritual. It wasn't repeated over and over again. He didn't offer prayers and a Thanksgiving for it. None of it. None of that happened. What happened in 1621 was Massasoit's shakedown at the most, a green corn festival at the least. But they used both of those things, whether the shakedown, Massasoit, or the green corn festival, they used that in order to achieve a military and political alliance. And so they were going to back each other up. They would attack each other's enemies. They were going to be best friends. And the William Bradford and the Pilgrims, they got to stay on the Patuxent lands, on Squanto's ancestral lands. So they got to keep the land. They got a military, political alliance out of the deal. And then Massasoit brought all the food. I mean, the crackers didn't have shit. They didn't even have any food. Who brought the goddamn food? It was the Wampanoag and the Pokanets and Massasoit with the 90 warriors. They brought the goddamn food after they got their military alliance, after they got their political alliance. So the crackers didn't have nothing. They didn't know how to do shit, didn't have shit. They're starving, eating each other, propping each other up as scarecrows. And there wasn't even any fucking turkey at that 1621 feast. There was 5 white-tailed deer, some Indian corn, a.k.a. maize. There was grain, maybe wheat, most likely barley, and some fowl. And so if it was goddamn turkey, why would you say fowl? Going fowling is shooting at the little birds. So shooting at the little birds, duck, jaybird, blue jay, cardinal, hummingbird, right? Waterfowl. Waterfowl means it's a duck and it's geese. Duck or geese, that's it, not turkey. Turkey's not a waterfowl. Letter to his daughter Ben Franklin once suggested that we should have the turkey. The turkey should be our national bird. That's what Ben Franklin thought. He thought that the turkey was more a bird of courage, whereas the eagle was a scavenger. He wasn't a courageous bird, just a scavenger. So imagine that. If turkey was America's national bird, then every year at Thanksgiving we would be eating a bald eagle. Why? Just for the hell of it. Were there bald eagles back then? Who knows? Probably. Did they eat it? Doesn't matter. They didn't eat turkey either. In 1614, Adrian Block led an expedition to the lower Hudson River and the Tiger and then explored the East River aboard the Onrus to become the first known European to navigate the Heligat in order to gain access to Long Island Sound. Both Block Island and Block Island Sound are named in Adrian Block's honor. Adrian Block, 1614, this is the Dutch. In 1623, Pilgrim Governor William November 29th of 1623 was declared a day of Thanksgiving, and this is a date that many people believe to be the real beginning of the present Thanksgiving date. The one that was declared in 1623 when it was a drought. He was praying for rain, and then rain happened. And then to celebrate that rain had happened when they ordered a day of fasting and prayer, he had a day of Thanksgiving. And so that was an official day of Thanksgiving for the Plymouth Pilgrims, William Bradford and Company. And so they did officially say it, but not 1621. Wasn't a Thanksgiving. It was a fall festival. You know, let's have fall festivals. Let's get along with one another. Just not a Thanksgiving. It just isn't. 1637, in late May or early June, Mason and Underhill's troops united with the Massachusetts troops. A group of Pequot was discovered near the Connecticut River. The Narragansett pretended to offer them protection, enabling the English troops to capture them. Some Pequot managed to flee to Manhattan Island. In July, the English pursued fugitive Pequot. The Dutch East Indies Company was originally established as a chartered company in 1602 when the Dutch government granted it a 21-year monopoly on the Dutch spice trade. The Dutch East Indies Company was a pioneering early model of the multinational corporation in its modern sense. The company is also often considered to be the world's first true transnational corporation. In the early 1600s, the VOC, the Dutch East Indies Company, their abbreviation is VOC, it became the first company in history to issue bonds and shares of stock to the general public. So the first multinational, first transnational corporation, all right, Dutch East Indies Company, the VOC, right? That makes sense, the VOC. So what was the first transnational corporation? The VOC is. On July 13th, English forces surrounded mystic survivors in a swamp near New Haven and offered safe conduct to old men, women, children, and non-Pequot residents of the swamp if they agreed to be taken prisoner. 200 people accepted this offer and 80 warriors refused and started shooting arrows at Underhill and Mason in the early morning fog of July 14th. Between 20 to 70 Pequot escaped. So 20 to 70 Pequot still live as of July 1637, but 200 people did accept the offer because they essentially saw that they had been defeated. So the Native Americans used to celebrate Thanksgiving. Native Americans used to celebrate, fall. They used to have a fall harvest for the last 14,000 years. They used to celebrate a kind of Thanksgiving, and then the British colonists invaded. So they used to celebrate Thanksgiving. Fuck all this obligatory made-up holidays, celebrating genocidal murderers, fictional flying fat men, rabbits shitting eggs. What are we doing? Maybe we should celebrate this day by giving turkey dinners to the folks who are about the genocide. Here's a nice turkey dinner. What's this for? We're about to wipe you out. Kind of like a kiss of death kind of thing. I think the native plants, we should plant native plants, plant some pumpkins, plant some succotash and zucchini, but also the good things, right? The pecans and the chocolate and the vanilla beans. These things grow really well around here. The bananas, I don't know why we just doing it in the Caribbean. We can raise all this stuff. The American Pilgrim Fathers were early European settlers of the Plymouth colony in present-day Plymouth, Massachusetts, United States. The Pilgrims' leadership came from the religious congregations of Brownist English dissenters who had fled the volatile political environment in England for the relative calm and tolerance of 16th, 17th century Holland and the Netherlands. The Pilgrims held Puritan Calvinist religious beliefs that, unlike other Puritans, they maintained that their congregations needed to be separated from the English state church. As a separatist group, they were also concerned that they might lose their English cultural identity if they remained in the Netherlands, so they arranged with English investors to establish a new colony in North America. The colony was established in 1620 and became the second successful English settlement in North America after Jamestown, 1607. The Pilgrim story became a central theme of the history and culture of Pilgrims were invading and taking over America. Non-English European colonization of the Americas was also happening in New Netherlands, New France, Essequibo, colonial Brazil, Barbados, the Viceroyalty of Peru, and New Spain. West Indies Company is WIC, right? So the VOC, the WIC, the Dutch East Indies Company is the world's first formally listed public company because it was the first corporation to ever actually be listed as an official, formal stock or listed on a stock exchange. As the first historical model of the quasi-fictional concept of the mega corporation, the VOC possessed quasi-governmental powers, including the ability to wage war, imprison, and execute convicts, negotiate treaties, strike its own coins, and establish colonies. And that's just the Dutch East Indies Company. Oh my God, Sassacus, he's in there. He's in the fort. Sassacus is there. Sassacus, the god, the one god. Nobody can kill Sassacus, the god. And so they stayed back. Green bean casserole consists of green beans, cream of mushroom soup, and French fried onions. French fried onions. Cream of mushroom soup and green beans. That's green bean casserole. It turns out that green beans are native to the Americas, the wild P. vulgaris. It was originally believed that it had been domesticated separately in Mesoamerica and in the southern Andes region. Given the domesticated bean 2 gene pools, however, recent genetic analysis shows that it was actually domesticated in Mesoamerica first, traveled south, probably along with squash and maize, corn. The three Mesoamerican crops constitute the three sisters, central to indigenous North American agriculture. The three sisters is the reason why Native American agriculture or technology was actually better than the Europeans. The three sisters. Just going to end this off with a bunch of etymology of all these things that we did not have at the first so-called 1621 Thanksgiving feast. So green bean casseroles, there was green beans around here, mushrooms all over, and then onions were taken by the first European settlers to North America, where the Native Americans were already eating wild onions, raw or cooked in various foods. So that means there was already wild onions here the Native Americans were using, but the European settlers brought the bulbs. And the Pilgrim Fathers, the bulb onions was one of the first crops planted by the Pilgrim Fathers, according to the diaries kept by the colonists. So there was onions, right? Not native. It wasn't indigenous here, so that kind of scratches out the green bean casserole. And they'd have to have cream of mushroom soup, so that's Campbell's, right? So they don't have any of that, even though there was green beans, there was mushrooms, and there was onions. They had the capability of doing it. No turkeys, no stuffing, no pumpkin pie. When you're stuffing your turkey, know that you're stuffing it with lies and genocide. So no pumpkin pie. They would eat raw pumpkin straight out of the field. They wouldn't eat ham in the 1621 festival. There was no candied yams, a.k.a. sweet potatoes, because sweet potatoes did not come up to North America by 1621. There was no watermelons because Spanish settlers were growing it in Florida in 1576, and it was being grown in Massachusetts in 1629. So there could have been some watermelons, but it wasn't mentioned. It wasn't mentioned 1629. This is 1621. This has been 8 years later. So, no, there could not have been any watermelons because they wouldn't see watermelons until 8 years later. So, 1650, watermelons was being cultivated in Peru, Brazil, Panama, and in many British and Dutch colonies. Native Americans were cultivating the crop, and the watermelons were rapidly accepted in Hawaii and other Pacific islands when they were introduced by explorers such as Captain James Cook. So Native Americans were cultivating the crop in the Mississippi Valley in Florida about the same time that Massachusetts was doing it, 1629, 1650. Seedless watermelons were initially developed in 1939 by Japanese scientists who were able to create seedless triploid hybrids, which remained rare initially because they did not have sufficient disease resistance. Seedless watermelons became more popular in the 21st century, rising to nearly 85% of total watermelon sales in the U.S. in 2014. No cantaloupes. The name is derived via French cantaloupe from Italian cantalupo, which was formerly a papal county seat near Rome after the fruit's introduction there from Armenia. So Armenia camped at Mystic River at night. The English ships pretended to leave. They thought this would trick the Native Americans. Cantaloupes were mentioned in English literature with 1739. Around 1890, cantaloupes became a commercial crop in the U.S. 1890. There was no fucking cantaloupes. There could have been watermelon. It was only 8 years away. But definitely no fucking cantaloupes. No apples either. The apple tree originated in Central Asia, where its wild ancestor Malus seversi is still found today. Apples have been grown for thousands of years in Asia and Europe and were brought to North America by European colonists. Apples were introduced to North America by colonists in the 17th century, and the first apple orchard on the North American continent was planted in Boston by Reverend William Blackston in 1625. Massachusetts, Boston, apple orchid, 1625. The first one. That's 4 years after this big fucking feast. The only apples native to North America are crab apples, which were once called common apples. John Mason, John Underhill, Uncas, Miantonimo, they didn't want to fight the Pequot offspring of Sassacus directly, face-to-face, man-to-man. Instead, they strategically, geniusly, right, the way the history books write, chose terrorism, straight-up fucking terrorists. So John Mason and John Underhill are fucking terrorists. They had common apples, so there's crab apples. The apples that are native to North America are crab apples, you know. How come I don't have that on my list? Seems like something that should be on my list. So I wouldn't be going around telling people not to eat apples. Hey, you're not American if you don't eat an apple, right? So the apples native to North America are crab apples. So if you're going to eat a fucking apple, eat a goddamn crab apple. That's the only way you'll be an American. You'll skate by as an American if you eat common apples. Common apples for common people, crab apples. That's the only apples native to North America. Okay? There's no mangoes. Mangoes are native to South Asia, from where the common mango or Indian mango, the Mangifera indica, has been distributed worldwide to become one of the most widely cultivated fruits in the tropics. No bananas. Cavendish Group bananas, they accounted for the majority of banana exports despite only coming into existence in 1836. 36. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? And that means the bananas that you see today, we didn't even know they existed until 1836. And, of course, a Jamaican, Jean-Francois Pujat, P-O-U-J-O-T, Pujat. He found one of the banana trees in his plantation was bearing a yellow fruit instead of green or red. He was like, holy shit. He liked the taste. It was sweeter in its raw state without the need for cooking. And he began cultivating this sweet variety. And that's the variety we know today, the Cavendish Group bananas, the yellow sweet banana. It's actually a mutant strain of the cooking banana, the plantain, right? What the fuck's a plantain? I don't know, but I do know what a Cavendish Group banana is. And then about Walmart and Oscar Mayer, no Fate Zero, that's media. That's the Fritos. Fritos creator, Charles, was an invention called Cheetos, 1948, and it was invented by the same man who created Fritos, Charles Elmer Doolin. So Charles Elmer Doolin invented Fritos, and then he was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and invent me some Cheetos, too. I got Fritos. Now let's get some Cheetos. Doritos was, let's see, the original product was made at the Casa de Fritos, now Rancho del Zocalo at Disneyland in Anaheim, California during the early 1960s. So the Doritos was not in there, America 1621, because it was invented in 1960s in Anaheim, California. You didn't know that. Twinkies were invented in Schiller Park, Illinois on April 6, 1930 by James Alexander Dewar, a baker from May 10th, 1637, John Mason with 90 colonists and 60 Mohegans under Uncas left Hartford to attack Sassacus's Pequot Harbor Fort. On May 15th, Mason and Uncas arrived at Fort Saybrook with their troops. John Underhill had 19 men at the fort. Uncas led 40 men to battle against the Twinkies. The Twinkies were invented April 6, 1930 by a baker for the Continental Baking Company, realizing that several machines used to make cream-filled strawberry shortcake sat idle when strawberries were out of season. Dewar conceived of a snack cake filled with banana cream, and he dubbed it the Twinkie. The Pringles were invented in the mid-1960s. This is another P&G researcher, Alexander Lipa of Montgomery, Ohio, restarted Barr's work. So Barr started it, and then Lipa finished it. He improved the Pringles taste, which he succeeded in doing. While Barr was the true inventor of the Pringles chip, Lipa's name is on the patent. Gene Wolfe is a mechanical engineer, an author known for science fiction and fantasy novels. He developed the machine that cooks Pringles. So there's three main men. We don't even know what Thanksgivings are. But it wasn't a Thanksgiving in 1621. There was no turkey there. There was no cranberry sauce, no green bean casserole, no Parker House rolls. The only four things that was listed in the primary source was waterfowl, 5 deer, grain, and Indian corn. Those are the four things, and that's it. Grain, so that could be barley and wheat. Indian corn, so cornmeal, hominy. Deer, venison, waterfowl, ducks, and geese. No turkey. Pequot and the Neantic, killing 4 to 7 on May 18th. So some Neantic were on the side of the Pequot. There was western and eastern Neantic. For Gene Wolfe and some man named Alexander Lipa and some man named Bauer and Alexander Lipa and Gene Wolfe is the reason why we got Pringles in the mid-1960s. And potato chips. Of course, there wasn't any potato chips. There's one story, but here's another story. George Crumb, another half-black, half-Native American cook at Moon's Lake House, was trying to appease an unhappy customer on August 24th, 1853. The customer kept sending his French fried potatoes back, complaining that they were too thick, too soggy, and or not salted well enough. Frustrated, Crumb personally sliced several potatoes extremely thin, fried the potato slices to a crisp, and seasoned them with extra salt. To Crumb's surprise, the customer loved them. Crumb's customer was Cornelius Vanderbilt. May 18th, Mason and Underhill's forces left for Narragansett Territory and arrived on May 20th. The Narragansett under Miantonimo and the Eastern Neantic under Ninigret confirmed their allegiance to John Mason and John Underhill. On May 25th, we don't even know what Thanksgivings are. But it wasn't a Thanksgiving in 1621. There was no turkey there. There was no cranberry sauce, no green bean casserole, no Parker House rolls. The only four things that was listed in the primary source was water, fowl, 5 deer, grain, and Indian corn. Those are the four things, and that's it. Grain, so that could be barley and wheat. Indian corn, so cornmeal, hominy. Deer, venison, waterfowl, ducks, and geese. No turkey. Antonimo, Ninigret, John Mason, John Underhill, Uncas, they approached Sassacus's Pequot Harbor Fort on May 25th. The Treaty of Hartford Conference, and on top of all those great, wonderful things about the Pequot War, we got some good news from Germany. And good news from Germany. What was that news? Who the fuck knows? Who is this? The Protestants, the Germans, the Catholics, what good news from Germany? I am baffled by that part. What good news? But they decided to attack the fort at Mystic instead. Various reasons for this change of plan have been suggested, ranging from its closer location to a deliberate attempt to avoid a battle and instead have a massacre. They arrived in camp. Pequot was discovered near the Connecticut River. The Narragansett pretended to offer them protection, enabling the English troops to capture them. Some Pequot managed to flee to Manhattan Island. In July, the English pursued fugitive Pequot. The Dutch East Indies Company was originally established as a chartered company in 1602 when the Dutch government granted it a 21-year monopoly on the Dutch spice trade. The Dutch East Indies Company was a pioneering early model of the multinational corporation in its modern sense. The company is also often considered to be the world's first true transnational corporation. In the early 1600s, the VOC, the Dutch East Indies Company, their abbreviation is VOC. It became the first company in history to issue bonds and shares of stock to the general public. So the first multinational, first transnational corporation. All right, deep Dutch. This is a person that needs to go out and get some exercise. So that's some cornmeal, okay? So there might have been cornmeal. So you could have had all that, but there wasn't no green bean casserole, no turkeys, no watermelons, no cantaloupes, no apples, no mangoes. They were setting their dead up in the forest, propping them up, setting them up against the trees to give the appearance of armed guards. So literal scarecrows, using their dead to turn them into literal scarecrows. 1600, before America, before the Enlightenment. That 1621 Wampanoag Pokanoket dinner wasn't a Thanksgiving feast. 200 people accepted this offer and 80 warriors refused and started shooting arrows at Underhill and Mason in the early morning fog of July 14th. Between 20 to 70 Pequot escaped. So 20 to 70 Pequot still live as of July 1637, but 200 people did accept the offer because they essentially saw that they had been defeated. So the Native Americans used to celebrate Thanksgiving. No bananas, no coffee, no Fritos, no Doritos, no tea, no Captain Crunch, no Oscar Mayer, no Walmarts, no Twinkies, no Pringles, no potato chips, No Raisin Bran Crunch, no Frosted Flakes, no sugar, no clean water, no plumbing, no sewage, no internet, no Pokemon, no Fate Zero, no Fate Stay Night. No concept of the mega corporation, the VOC, possess quasi-governmental powers, including the ability to wage war, imprison, and execute convicts, negotiate treaties, strike its own coins, and establish colonies. And that's just the Dutch East Indies Company. 1625. The first one, that's 4 years after this big fucking feast. The only apples native to North America are crab apples, which were once called common apples. No Parker House rolls. The only 4 things that was listed in the primary source was water, fowl, 5 deer, grain, and Indian corn. Those are the 4 things, and that's it. Grain, so that could be barley and wheat. Indian corn, so cornmeal, hominy. Deer, venison, waterfowl, ducks, and geese. Oh my God, Sassacus. He's in there. He's in the fort. Sassacus is there. Sassacus, the god. The one god. Nobody can kill Sassacus, the god. And so they stayed back. It can be used as grits, as a porridge, such as cornmeal mush, which is often then sliced and grilled, known as samp. It is used in colonial times as a kind of porridge. And you listen to 1 minute of food talk because you're fat, America. You're fat.